Hi everyone, my name is Rob McGregor and I've been working in the finance and money industry for about 30 years. I'm a co-founder of a business called GPS Wealth, and for the last 16 years our businesses have been helping everyday Australian families win the game of money. Now you may not have heard of the game of money yet, but chances are if you're watching this video, someone you know and trust thinks you might benefit from what's going to follow. So for the next few minutes I'm going to talk about the game of money and how you can win. So what is the game of money? Well, quite simply, it's a story we tell people understand and take away a bit of the fear about dealing with money and financial things. Everyone says that they want to be financially successful, but the sad reality is 90% of people fail. And we'll talk about that a bit more. But one of the reasons they fail is because money can seem such a scary concept and such a complicated concept. So we want to make it a bit simpler. So let's have a look at what the game of money is. Everyone starts off, and let's use this baseball analogy. Everyone starts off with no direction, no plan, and no strategy. We all start there. Some people stay there for their whole lives, and they never get off that home plate and never do anything financially well. Now most of you who are watching this will want to get off that batting plate. So we then move to first base, and I'm going to talk more about each of these in a minute. But first base is where we build strong financial foundations that'll help you get to the next stage, which is to start your wealth creation journey. Now eventually, once we've built a bit of wealth, we get close to retirement. We call it the countdown to retirement, where you can see retirement 10 years out or thereabouts or less, and all of a sudden you need some specific plans around that. Finally, the target for most of the people we work with is a home run. That's the ability to retire in style with true financial independence. Now let me touch on each of these phases just a little bit more. Firstly, first base. So we've got off, first thing we've got to do is get some strong financial foundations in place. So the foundations, we use a simple acronym called PERFECT to help us remember those foundations. So the P simply stands for protecting your family. And that means having adequate insurances in place to make sure that in the event of a catastrophe that you financially wouldn't be disadvantaged. Most Australians don't have anywhere near enough insurances in place, and that means their families would be in a terrible position if anything happened to them. The E stands for having your estate plan in order, and we all know we should get a will, but lots of us haven't got around to getting it done properly. And for some of us, the wills can be quite complicated. Now we make sure that complicated stuff gets done simply. Now we want you to have really smart super. Now when people are starting the workforce in their 20s, they don't really think of super as a long-term asset for themselves. They think about it as more of a tax that someone takes out of their pay. But super is going to be the biggest asset most working Australians will have in their lifetime outside of their home, and for lots of people it will be far more than their home. So really important to get really smart about what you do with super there. The next one there, the F, is to have, it stands for your foundation support team, and that's simply to have access to a team of experts, including an accountant, a financial planner, a mortgage broker, and those types of people, a solicitor, who can take care of all your financial needs and make sure you're going to win the game of money. The E is for effective debt management. We want to make sure that we use debt wisely, and that's to buy things that are going to go up in value, and not so much for the bad debts, and that's buying things that are going to go down in value. And we can talk to you about those particular strategies. Next, the C is for cash flow under control, and that's just making sure you've got more money coming in than going out, and that some of that money that's left over is available to start that wealth creation journey. And lastly, tax under control. No one wants to pay any more tax than they legally have to, and there's some smart ways you can use to minimise your tax while importantly building your wealth. Now first base, when do people ready to go to first base? When they get to that point where they want some direction, they're ready to make some smart decisions about money. They want to, their family's important to them, their future's important to them. They're not sure where to start, but they want to start taking care of all those foundations. Now, lots of financial institutions in Australia don't like dealing with people that haven't got a lot of money. The people you're involved with absolutely love to help those at all stages of the game of money, because we've got programs to suit everyone at different stages. The aim of first base is to eventually be able to buy a first home or a first investment property, whichever is most appropriate for you. Eventually, once we've got that first home or the first investment property and we've got the foundations in place, we want to move to the next stage of our game of money, and that's what we call pathway to wealth. So that's our wealth creation. First thing we do is check the foundations because they need constantly adjusting as we go from zero to financial independence. We're going to start a program to reduce debt, particularly the mortgage and the bad debt that we might have. We're going to accelerate the super and get really smart about the super. We'll potentially buy an investment property where that's appropriate for someone to have, given their own circumstances. And we'll build a share portfolio bit by bit. Now, the advisors at our firm at GPS are a bit different to lots of the financial planning industry. There's about 18,000 financial planners in Australia, and about 80% of them work for major institutions, banks, insurance companies, industry funds, that type of thing. That means quite often they have a bias towards the products of what they provide from that institution. GPS advisors can deal with super, can deal with shares, can deal with property, can deal with mortgages, can deal with everything you're going to need for you to win the game of money. So we're building the share portfolio, we're getting smart about the cash flow. The two biggest uses of cash you have in your lifetime for most people are paying your mortgage and paying tax. Now if you get smart about both those two things, you can win this game a lot easier. And as we said, we want to get smart about tax. So people are ready to start the wealth creation journey when they've got the home and they've built a little bit of equity and they've built a little surplus. In other words, they're ahead of the game. They've got some money they can start to put towards an investment program. And sometimes they're not sure whether they've got that there, but often we can find that money when we sit down with them. So that gets us to second base. So we're on the journey. And by the way, for most people, this is going to be somewhere around the ages of 28 to 48, 28 to 50. And it's where we're talking to everyday Australian families. And at this stage, they're also bringing up kids quite often as well. So eventually, our wealth generation starts to have some traction. And we get to a point where we can actually see the possibility of retirement. So retirement might be less than 10 years away, and people are ready to go to third base. And they're 8 to 10 years away from retirement. They've now got some clearly defined goals for retirement, and they've generally started to build nest egg assets, and I'll talk about those in a minute, of more than 300,000. So these are assets that you can live off outside your family home and outside the business. So at this stage, we're ready to start a retirement plan. And we're going to check the foundations again. We're really going to focus on the goals, and that is how much money someone's going to need in retirement. And most of our clients are going to need somewhere between 60,000 and 200,000 to live a standard of retirement that is consistent with what they've had and what they want to live. Now, the age pension for a couple is closer to 30,000. So for those that don't get this right, if they're living off 100,000 right now, it's a big drop to 30,000 if they don't get it right. So, but with step-by-step, playing the game the smart way, you can actually get to the point where you can maintain and even improve your standard of living. So we increase the focus to super at this stage. Super's tax-free in retirement, so we'll start to build up the super. And quite often this countdown to retirement will start for people around the age of 50, plus or minus 5, depending on your own circumstances. But we've got a clear picture now of what retirement might look like. And as always, we're trying to minimise tax legally to make sure we get the most of our money going towards our future. So the final step, a home run, retire in style. At this stage, we've got really clear goals about what our retirement's going to look like. We've got our estate plan clear, and that is we know if anything happened to us, what would happen to our money beyond there. We've got a pretty clear idea of how long our money's going to last and whether we've actually got enough. One of the toughest things facing retirees is knowing whether they've actually got enough to retire. And this can work both ways. Some people don't think they have enough, but they've got more than they need. And the result is they don't spend what they could. And other people think they've got enough, but they don't have enough. And the result is they're going to run out of money. Both those situations are a bit of a waste of their financial resources. At this stage, and certainly when people are 60 plus, if they're well structured, it's pretty much a tax-free world if you've done your homework and ticked off all the bases. And it's very important here to have a very solid investment methodology to look after your funds through the 20 to 40 years, which is a normal retirement expected these days. So what is retiring style to most Australians? It's quite simply having nest egg assets of around $500 to $5 million. For most Australians, it's going to be in that $1 to $2 million range. That's going to earn them between 60 and 100,000 a year, which is what they're spending right now. So once again, if they don't get that right, it's a long drop down to the age pension. And by the way, we've got to wait till you're 67 and be able to qualify as well. So at this stage, home run, you decide whether you're going to work or not. But for people at this phase, they're pretty much retired or ready to retire, or they know they could retire at any stage. So whereabouts are you on the game of money? Are you just getting started? Are you at first base? Are you ready to start to build some wealth? Are you ready to start focusing on retirement? Or are you already retired or think you're just about there, but you need to make sure you're set up for that long, comfortable, stress-free retirement? That's the game of money. It's a game we can help you win. And another way of looking at it is through this chessboard. And you'll see across there, we move people through from the left-hand side, our foundations program, where we get people set up using those perfect foundations. And the wealth focus down the bottom there is on that first home and building equity and starting some savings plans. As they get to that second base, the focus changes. The wealth focus changes to that first investment property, if appropriate, starting to build slowly into the share market, slowly and steadily, accelerating their super and investing carefully. And we've got a very specific way we do that. As they get into that countdown to retirement, the wealth focus changes to starting to build up the super, and particularly as we know super is going to be tax-free in retirement. And finally, it's making sure we've got revolved debt in retirement. We've got enough cash backup in retirement so we can hold on to good quality assets without ever worrying about them. So that's the game of money. It's a game you can win, but here's the scary fact. Less than 10% of Australians at the age of 65 actually win. Now the statistics show that 90% of people have less than 500,000 of nest egg assets at age 65. In fact, 80% of people have less than 100,000. So 100,000 means they qualify for a full age pension, and half of the people on that age pension actually have assets of less than $20,000. So that means about 42% of Australians at age 65 have pretty much nothing. It's quite sad. Ask yourself, how would you feel if you got to age 65 and you were like most Australians with around $100,000? For most of our clients, that's not something they're willing to accept, and they're ready to do something about it. So that's the game of money. How does GPS Wealth help? Well, we're an independently owned financial group, and we have advisors that work closely with accounting firms to help the clients of those firms win the game of money. We're not just based on investments and things like that, but GPS, if you think about what it stands for us, the G stands for goals, the P stands for plans, and the S stands for strategy. So we sit down with you and help you develop clear goals based on where you are in the game of money. We then develop a customised financial plan which details the smart strategies, which tells us the actions we're going to need to take depending on your wealth focus of where you are right now in the game of money. We then make sure you execute and implement that plan, because a plan without action is just a wish or a dream, and we've got to put it into action. But we make sure it's custom designed for you, that it's going to get you excited, but that it's realistic and going to get you to a long, comfortable, stress-free retirement. So that's the GPS story. Another way of looking at a GPS is pretty much like the GPS in your car. That is, you get in your car, you put in where you want to go, and that can be the same as working out your long-term financial targets. The GPS calculates where you are now, and we help you sit down and work out your exact financial position right now, and then it tells you step by step exactly what to do. That's our role. We'd love to talk to you. GPS advisors are experienced financial planners trained in each phase of the game of money. Thank you.